This is the complete Office Iceberg explained. UK Office. The US version of The Office is based on the British mockumentary from 2001 that was made by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. NBC's version kept the documentary style, awkward humor, and of course, paper company setting, but after season 1 of the US Office, the tone quickly shifted from more harsh and cringeworthy, I guess, to warmer and more character-driven. David Brent from the British version was the original model for Michael Scott, and Jim and Pam are supposed to mirror Tim and Dawn in the British version. That's what she said. That's what she said is probably the most famous reoccurring line from the show. Writers, especially BJ Novak, brought in the joke and thought that Michael would be the perfect one to repeat it. This phrase really does show Michael's social blind spots. I mean, he can't even help but say it when he's at funerals, HR seminars, and even when he's actually really close with someone. As the seasons went on, we see that they chose to use the phrase a little bit more sparingly. Michael Season 2. In Season 1, Michael is honestly kind of just rude, full of himself, and I guess even unredeemed. For Season 2, the writers decided to make him less mean by changing his look, giving him small victories, and also reminding us that he is actually a pretty good salesman. Episodes stopped ending with pure embarrassment and started showing some of his kindness, which made his eventual exit from the show really hurt. Ricky Gervais cameos. In The Office, the US version of course, Gervais plays David Brent twice, with the most notable one being when he meets Michael in a cold open outside of an elevator. This part shows that both of these guys are, of course, pretty similar because they're based on the same person, but also how their delusions are slightly different. We can see how both of these men kind of want to be famous, but Michael's need is, I guess, more family-based, while Ricky's is a bit more egotistical. Same name characters. Sometimes background actors were given bigger roles without actually changing their names. Some big examples include Phyllis, Creed, Oscar, and even Angela. It stayed true to the idea of the documentary, showing that these real people had always been there, and it saved writers from having to create entirely new storylines and characters overall when small talkers became big parts of the show. Do the Scarn sampled. Billie Eilish's My Strange Addiction uses lines from Threat Level Midnight. This is an interesting licensing decision because the song's theme is similar to the obsession that the show makes fun of. Billie Eilish originally made the song without even thinking that the sample would be cleared, but of course it did. The choice of sample also shows how timeless the show is, as it's continued to grow even years and years after the show has ended, of course. Green screens. The production of the show was pretty proud of its realistic locations, but there are a few well-known composites. Some of them being Michael's koi pond fall and some driving scenes. When they go back to a place that the show just can't rent again, the backgrounds are fake, which is a pretty rare occurrence in the show, so viewers notice when it happens. Most streamed show of 2020. Even after the finale, the show blew up on streaming platforms and topped US minutes viewed charts. Like I said, the show was pretty timeless overall. It was pretty bingeable, had a lot of viral clips that were shared on the internet, of course, comfort episodes that could be played in the background, and I guess just a lot of repeatability. Webisodes. NBC made short videos for the website, like The Accountants, Kevin's Loan, and others. These gave side characters more depth, while the main cast shot features. Some examples being Creed's plans and Kelly and Aaron's pop duo joke. Podcasts. Office Ladies was made by Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, who are of course Pam and Angela, and The Office Deep Dive was made by Brian Baumgartner, who is Kevin. These podcasts became unofficial commentaries, sharing behind-the-scenes facts, deleted scenes, and even the show's unwritten rules. And for The Iceberg, they're even the main sources for a lot of the entries on the chart. Kevin's embezzlement. Early on in the show, I mean, Kevin is never the smartest, but he is fairly smart. You know, he seems like an average guy. But later on in the show, Kevin definitely has something happen to his level of intelligence. There are a lot of instances where you can see his mental capacities deteriorate, but one example is where he starts using the number 11T. But what if he's actually not dumb and just pretending to be dumb? One fan theory says that he's just pretending to be dumb as a long con to steal money to pay off his poker debts, which would let him lie about his accounts and eventually be fired for just incompetence. This would of course destroy his job, but let him leave with a clean exit. The show of course never says for sure, but it turns his poker skills cash handling, and bar ownership ending into a big mystery. The Scranton Strangler. This is the longest murder mystery in the fandom. A lot of people suspect that Toby might be the Scranton Strangler, but this is eventually unofficially disproven by producers of the show. Part of that is when Toby goes to visit the Scranton Strangler and gets strangled himself. A lot of fans also talk about how it's funny that the real bit of drama going on in Scranton gets pretty much brushed off by the people who are filming the mockumentary, when instead they're just focusing on people like Michael. That's the end of the first tier, and before we jump on into the second one, please drop a like and subscribe if you're enjoying, because these videos do take quite some time to make. Season 1 Office, real building. The pilot's interiors were a real office, but Season 2 was just a set built to look like it. To keep the illusion of a documentary, the design included visible ceiling fluorescence, ducts, and machine hums. Intro footage. Before shooting, John Krasinski filmed B-roll in Scranton, and eventually Greg Daniels bought the footage for the opening titles. And I guess that choice ties the show to a real town instead of just a made-up place for a sitcom. Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration. Bob Vance is all about guerrilla marketing. There's a camera crew in his warehouse, so he says the name of his company again. Phyllis inevitably falls for a man who knows more about attention economics than someone like Michael. Potential castings. Rainn Wilson read for Michael, Adam Scott for Jim, and a few others were interested in roles on the show. But of course, the final cast that was chosen for the show was amazing, and a lot of people wonder how the show would have looked if things were even slightly different. Jim and Pam's relationship really helped shape the show, and a lot of other things kind of revolved around that. Jenna and Chili's. After the Dundies, Pam is banned from Chili's for getting a little bit too wild. Years later, Chili's themselves actually lifted the ban on Twitter as a joke. Fans even treat it as a canon event, with it being one of the first corporate brand and TV meta exchanges. Functional computers. Each desk had an actual working computer. People in the background sent emails, played solitaire, and wrote paperwork for their character, which let cameras move around the office with it seeming pretty authentic. The Annex's writers. A lot of writers like Mindy Kaling, Paul Lieberstein, and BJ Novak sit in the Annex so they can disappear when they're not needed on camera. It's basically a cheat for the production that lets them work on writing while they need to, but also stays true to the office setting, where HR and temp are generally hidden from most of sales. Michael's song. 9,986,000 minutes was scripted, but Steve Carell didn't hear the harmonies of the cast until the cameras actually started rolling. So his reaction is actually genuine and not even acting. Real spouse cameos. Nancy Carell plays Carol, Lee Kirk plays the lactation consultant, and even Angela's husband shows up later. These cameos really keep the set a family-friendly place to work, which helped build chemistry on the set and made these actors feel like real, genuine, lifelong friends. First, Jim and Pam kiss. Casino Night is the first sober, clear confession kiss, but Chili's is technically first, with it being drunk and unclear. A deleted line proves that Pam remembers it starting at Chili's, but that, of course, didn't make it into the show. Low expectations. Early press and even friends warned that the adaptation would not be good at Gervais's and Merchant's, but they of course couldn't be more wrong. The show became its own thing by of course making the main characters more relatable and also adding more characters. 13 offices. Outside of the UK, localized remakes made appearances in a lot of places, all the way from Canada to the Middle East. The format's flexibility really helps show the main joke. Everyone knows what it's like to have an unhinged boss and a petty coworker. Koi pond footage. There's an extended version of the security camera footage that was released. The point of Jim's laughter and Dwight's anger is that the funniest part isn't about the fall, it's about how long it takes Michael to get out while his staff watches. Character blogs. NBC took advantage of Web 2.0 by creating in-character blogs and MySpace pages. This turned the mockumentary into a transmedia office where fans could work alongside the staff in between episodes. Super Bowl episode. Stress Release aired after the Super Bowl with some compromises in the cameos. The movie within a show had Jack Black, Cloris Leachman, and Jessica Alba. This gave NBC celebrity faces without ruining the documentary's reality in Scranton. Number 1, retired call sheet number. After Carell left, the call sheet said retired for number 1 out of respect. It's a sports-like ritual that shows how important he was to the culture on set. Recasts. Pam's mom and Andy's parents switch actors. Also, early Meredith is different. Fans keep track of the mistakes, but the mockumentary style lets it slide. Documentaries do this all the time. Same actor, different character. Nelson Franklin plays Job Fair Nick and later IT Nick. Josh Groban plays Andy's brother. There are also a few one-off returns. The doc overall didn't really care about the universe because casting kept good people in the family. Troy, who is Noel Peacock, goes from being a corporate hanger-on to Dwight's strange friend. And then later on, he shows up in Threat Level Midnight. He's an example of how the show has a loose, lived-in world where minor weirdos keep showing up. Froggy 101. Froggy 101 is a real Scranton country station. Its bumper stickers are hidden objects all over the set. It's part of the Staying Real to Scranton mandate of the show. The Hangover Part 3. Ed Helms' film schedule pulled Andy off the show for multiple episodes. Toby was temporary. Paul Lieberstein's first plan was to just write, but his HR character, of course, worked pretty well on camera. That being said, Toby stayed on the show while he could, and then eventually left when Lieberstein had more showrunning duties to do. Emmy's skit. There were little bits from award shows that really brought the documentary to life that fans loved. Cod in Jim's room / Jim's wig. Jim owns Call of Duty 2, but he plays pretty darn badly at Stanford. He probably did this to flirt with Karen, just like he told Pam that he drove a manual transmission. Krasinski also wore a stealth wig to hide his haircut for Leatherheads during this time. He even proved to Greg Daniels that it could work by taking it off in the middle of a meeting. Alternative intros. The theme for the show was almost Mr. Blue Sky, but another NBC show took it before The Office could. The theme they decided on was ordered at the last minute, and luckily, Krasinski's B-roll made for a pretty nice and memorable intro, with a small town and a lot of emotion. Original show idea / An American Workplace. Daniels suggested a possible anthology with the subtitle An American Workplace, which would allow the camera to move to other fields. The subtitle eventually became the title of the documentary's broadcast cut. Schrute Farms TripAdvisor. A real listing lets fans pretend to be guests at an agritainment business that is getting less and less safe. Reviews used Dwight's voice, which turned the page into a pretty iconic Easter egg and joke. Angela's crush on Roy theory. Angela's preference for manly men and her getting flustered around Roy supports the theory that they may have flirted or maybe even had something more serious before the series started. It can also explain why Angela is so weirdly cold to Pam. Michael and biking continuity. Season 3's Fixie Ride and Season 7's Forgot How is classic Michael. He learns pretty shallow skills and then quickly abandons them to focus on whatever he's distracting himself with for the day. Kevin's glasses. Kevin strangely uses glasses for poker but not for spreadsheets. This can be just one more piece of the Kevin playing dumb theory. Michael's college. Michael talks about missing college, but he also says that a pyramid scheme swallowed his tuition. One possible explanation is that he went to community college for a short amount of time, made up stories about it, and then, I guess, completely rewrote the memory out of shame. Meredith on Jim / Meredith's job / Meredith's kids. Early records say that she was an accountant, but later on this gets changed to say she was in charge of supplier relations. She goes back and forth between flirting with Jim and being scared of tall, slender Jim, which shows how she changes up in the mockumentary for laughs. The webisodes also clear up her kid problem. They make it known that we only meet Jake at first because of a custody issue. John's signature. John Krasinski signs Meredith's cast with his real name in the scene, but the editors still decided to keep this small mistake in because it was kinda hard to tell if it was Jim's signature or not. Spin-offs. Parks and Recreation started as a copy your handoff idea but then fell apart. The Farm backdoor pilot is stuck, and a Next Generation idea imagines Dakota Johnson's new staff carrying the torch. The US version of The Office ended the documentary instead of the workplace, which left Scranton with a future that we don't see. Cast reunions. What a lot of fans may not know is that a lot of cast members actually knew each other from prior things that they did. Krasinski and Novak had high school overlaps, Oscar and Angela had ties in improv, and some had internships with Conan, which all help explain why the cast got along so well. Phyllis didn't audition. As a casting associate, she read lines for characters that were pretty much opposite of her. Daniels actually wrote Phyllis Vance for her because her line readings were so good. Cece's origins. Pam's baby's name is the same as Jenna Fischer's niece's name. Garage sale details / misspelled sign. The broken TV comes back and the clown painting disappears at the sale. This was the prop team's way of ending long-running bits. At the Halperts rehearsal, Halpern gets typed onto the signs. They decided to end up leaving it because it fit the theme of the show and felt more real that way. Prop wine. The Oscar label on a chug bottle reminds you that props are there because actors have to do the same scenes over and over again. Copier security. A chained copier at the business school is a nod to Michael's past theft. It's a subtle Easter egg that people would only realize if you, of course, remember his past crime. Open floor plan / conference room logic. There are no cubicles in Scranton's bullpen, just desk pods, which of course makes it easy to listen in and see cameras. But the documentary crew never explains how the conference room table magically appears and disappears. Kevin and Jan deleted joke. A joke suggests that Jan went to Kevin's frequent donor clinic. The joke is that Michael's fantasy is turned completely upside down. Jan's pregnancy doesn't need him or a relationship, just someone like Kevin. Steve sweat / 64-degree set. To keep Steve Carell comfortable, they needed to keep the set a little bit chilly. In wide shots, you can even see space heaters by some of the actors' feet. 1725 Slough Avenue / Satakoy Street / Satakoy Steel. The address is a nod to Slough, which is in the UK. The lot is on Satakoy Street, and later, writers add Satakoy Steel to Charles Miner's resume as a nod to the backlot. Cake topper. A fridge on top of the Vance wedding cake is there to promote his business. It's a little weird and shows how Phyllis and Bob's relationship is a little bit like a business relationship. The reason Michael hates Toby theory. Some fans have said that Michael hates Toby because Toby stands for divorce papers and a strict adult life, which is of course the opposite of what Michael wants most, a family. It's some leftover anger from his childhood that he got after his parents split up. Oscar and basketball. Oscar's shot and confidence go up and down. Sometimes he makes an easy throw into a trash can, but other times he feels awkward at the arcade. This shows how he's pretty confident when he's in the background of things, but he starts to feel a lot of pressure when he's the main focus, especially when he was trying to win Matt over. Roy and the Dundies. Before they break up, Roy laughs at jokes about getting engaged to Pam. Later that night, he even leaves when Pam gets attention. The episode crams years of being uncomfortable into one bad night. Dwight's bathroom trips math. Jim moving the desk 2 feet at a time means that Dwight used the bathroom 24 times. Which is possible, I guess, because Dwight drinks a lot of coffee and eats a lot of beets. Alco-horse. Andy mixes powdered seahorse with wine. And Creed's rough Mandarin translation, "don't mix with alcohol," is pretty spot on, which overall shows that Creed is a little bit smarter than most people think. Andy's cod name / short sleeves. Here Comes Trouble connects Andy's college acapella pass to his gamer tag. Also, when he copies Dwight's management style, he unknowingly changes into Dwight-ish short sleeves. Michael saves a life. Carell holds the door open for the camera operator in the lake plunge, which shows that the crew of the mockumentary shares the car. The actors are always switching places to make the point of view of the documentary more believable. A photo gag hints at Stan Lee's involvement during the civil rights movement. It's not clear if the line is meant to be taken literally or as kind of a nostalgic joke, but it definitely gives a little bit of unexpected insight into Stan Lee's past. Leslie's audition / accident. Leslie David Baker came in sweaty and angry from traffic. And of course, this was the perfect fit for Stan Lee and he won the role. A kick in the sand on the beach years later scratches Stan Lee's cornea, which is the most dangerous thing that has ever happened to him, of course, besides a heart attack. Pregnancy cover-up. There are folders, plants, and shoulder-up frames that hide Angela Kinsey's real pregnancy. Then, when Jenna Fischer got pregnant in real life, they also just decided to make her pregnant in the show. Fake gas station / silent proposal. The most expensive location build in the show was Jim's rest stop, which had rain rigs and a roundabout road. They even made a silent and audible version, but the editorial team eventually chose the audible version because it's important to hear Pam's gasp. Anchorman appearances. Steve Carell, Rudd as a possible boss, and David, who is Todd Packer, all connect the office to the Anchorman group. Pharrell later plays D'Angelo and hurts himself while filming a dunk. Pam in volleyball. Pam initially downplays sports and acts like she isn't any good at them, but later on plays pretty darn good. Some fans say that this showed how she was kind of forced to be passive while she was with Roy, but of course later on became more competitive after getting with Jim. Gabe and roaches versus horror. Gabe screams at a roach but claims to love horror movies. But this is thought to show that he just isn't brave and instead likes to get women's attention in conversations. Oscar and the carpet. Oscar knows that there's hardwood under the carpet and is happy when it's revealed. The joke is that literally only Oscar cares about the finishes in a paper company. Did Pam or Jim start first? At first, Pam told her new desk mate Jim to be careful around Dwight, kinda playfully like she was his boss. Earlier, Jim said that he had a crush on Pam when she first started. Editing and unreliable claims from both of them keep the mystery going. Cast mementos. The cast took props like the teapot, ring, and Dunder Mifflin sign when they left the set. NBC tried to stop it, but they couldn't help but let them do it because it showed how much they really cared about the show. Dwight gets David's chair. In Cocktails, Dwight wants David Wallace's rocker and later on gets one of his own. Executive/sales color matching. During the Michael Scott Paper Company standoff, the costumes put Jim and David together and Dwight and Charles together in matching colors. This was kinda a subtle hint at changing alliances. Michael's fish. In each episode about the Michael Scott Paper Company, a different goldfish shows up each time, which shows that Michael, of course, can't even keep one alive for like a week. This shows how impulsive Michael is as a person and, of course, as a pet owner. Creed has Michael's picture. A photo of the desk shows that Creed stole the photoshopped photo of the Carroll family. Apparently, Creed thinks other people's sentimental things are free decorations. Scrubs Hospital. The company picnic hospital is the same one in the show Scrubs in seasons 1 to 8. This was the TV economy in Los Angeles at work. Highlighted document. The legal page in the title sequence shows text circled with a highlighter instead of a pen. This plays into the unseriousness of people like Michael Scott. 1 million cut trees gag plaque. A framed certificate from Rainforest Harvesters makes fun of companies that pretend to be environmentally friendly by giving out awards for destruction. Palm trees. California palm trees sometimes creep into what is supposed to be Pennsylvania. The crew generally stays away from them, but the valley's wide exterior sometimes give it away. Bible business card / DM newsletter filler text. Dwight gives his card to a church and sends out newsletters with lorem ipsum-like repeated text. These are just production Easter eggs for people who like the pause button. Fish screensavers. After the koi pond incident, screensavers turned into fish. It's like how a real office would remember how embarrassing it was for the boss by making inside jokes about it that last for months. Steve Cement Face. Steve held his breath for longer than the crew thought he could in the cement scene. This is why you can see real fear in the crew because they thought that something terrible just happened. Staples store signage. The real Staples made the signs bigger in between shooting. They also made it so editors punch in on security footage to avoid putting products in the wrong place. Mugs beyond World's Best Boss. David Wallace and the Prince family both have similar mug gags that both show how Michael needs to feel like he belongs. Michael's finale secret. Most of the cast and even NBC marketing didn't know that Carell was gonna come back. The show wanted the last mockumentary surprise to be for fans, not to be spoiled in advertisements. Real Scranton products. To make the office feel more northeastern instead of just like a generic office, they got items from local stores when possible. One example being Crystal Club soda. Accurate CPR saved lives. People who watched Staying Alive said that the timing later helped them in actual real emergencies. A funny part of the show turned into an unintentional public health message. Tom Peets. A name in the suggestion box that was thrown away died in a very, very sad way. It's played off as a joke in the show, but it really makes you think about the dark past of Dunder Mifflin. Writer's strike / paychecks. During the WGA strike in 2007 to 2008, production of the show stopped. Greg Daniels is said to have helped the crew with checks, and Carell refused to cross picket lines. The 6-month break is what makes season 4 feel a little bit split. Steve was busy / Bob Odenkirk near miss. Before Carell was free, Odenkirk read for a boss who was like Brent. Years later, he played Pam's almost Michael in Philadelphia, which helped close the loop. Leslie's eye incident. The beach day sand scratch actually sent him to the hospital. Stanley's most in-character injury happened when someone else was just having harmless fun on set. Andy ate soap. Pharrell pushes Helms to actually chew on soap, and his look of surprise in the scene is real. Champion the dog. A dog named Champion from a shelter crosses over to Parks and Rec. This is one of the several cross-references in NBC comedies. Jim's Roy doll. A weird warehouse worker looking thing that was pinned to Jim's wall during the time Roy was engaged to Pam was basically like some sort of passive-aggressive totem. Paperclip license plate. A plate lookup joke leads to a list of colored paperclips, which is the exact brand Jim loves to tease Pam about when she can't find them. It's just a little Easter egg from the prop department. Michael's salad dressing. His custom labels look like his infamous mug. Michael is happiest when he can print a sense of belonging and just slap it on anything, whether it's a Dundee, a company, or ranch. Meredith's face, deleted explanation. In Weight Loss, a scene says that a sunburn from a fishing trip is what caused her splotchy face. Since this scene was cut though, it kind of just became a mystery on screen. Teapot letter. Pam reads Krasinski's personal note to Fisher, which the actors have kept private on purpose. The only bit of insight we get into it is her reaction. Pam's painting ruined. The show treated this painting as somewhat sacred, so when Aaron completely discombobulated it by spraying cleaner on it, they just decided to not throw that scene in the show. Dwight's kidney stones. Dwight gives his urologist a tip because he can't pulverize his own stones. Diets high in beets are linked to oxalate load, which makes his condition actually pretty darn realistic. Toby told Holly to be mean theory. Some fans have theorized that Holly's sudden outburst at Toby may have been a planned scene at his request to make her more appealing to Michael. This would actually make pretty good sense because Holly was pretty nice otherwise, and of course Michael has always hated HR. Phyllis and Stanley's secret theory. Do we report one-night stands? Phyllis asked. Stanley is also later on revealed to be a little bit of a cheater, and the plus suggests that they may have gotten together a few years ago. I think this is a pretty far-fetched rumor though, and of course the documentary never confirms it. Pam didn't fail art school theory. When she calls and says that she's failing, it pretty much just sounds like her excuse to go home. The theory is that she left for gym and then changed her grade so that no one knew that it was a lie, or that she just purposely tried to fail. Jim wrote the show. Some people say that the fictional editors are biased toward Jim because the documentary of course praises Jim and Pam while making fun of Dwight and Michael. Others say that post-documentary Jim shaped the cut for athlete PR. It's kind of just an interesting way to look at how point of view biases work. Jim's pranking cost. Tallies that fans have made have put the costs of all of Jim's pranks in the low thousands, which is quite a bit of money, but realistic for a decently successful salesman who is trying to enjoy his time at the office. IRL Scranton. Tourism went up, signs got stolen, and the welcome sign moved to a mall for selfies. The line between the show and the town got a little bit blurry, and the show kind of expected that to happen. The Buffett bathroom incident. A guest used a bathroom that didn't work, which eventually led to fake bathroom signs. This is a classic mistake that new studio lot workers make, but this time it was made famous by a mega billionaire cameo. Talking head positions. People who have lives outside of Dunder Mifflin, like Jim and Pam after season 3, are framed looking at the door or windows, while those who are trapped are framed looking in. When the branch is about to close, everyone looks out for a moment before turning back when they're saved. Will Ferrell got hurt. His attempt to grab the rim with a wire assist cut his leg on a redo. The used take is from his insistence on one more try, which is why the final dunk looks a little bit reckless. Safari manslaughter. Phyllis says that Bob Vance ran over someone in Africa and then paid them off to get out of it. This was a little bit dark for the show, so they deleted the scene, but it's still a little bit weird to watch because it doesn't really fit with the normal comedy. Some fans like to look at it instead like a rumor that was never confirmed, which helped fuel Bob Vance mafia theories. People think that Vance refrigeration is a front, or that he at least has shady connections in Scranton. Bob typically has some sort of power plays and access to former warehouse workers. That makes Phyllis's Don't Make Me Get Bob involved, a lot more menacing. Michael's family owns Cooper's. Luke Cooper's last name and Michael's obsession with Cooper's seafood makes it seem like he haunts the restaurant to visit family members he doesn't really get along with. This lines up with Michael's need to fit in. The Office's blinds. The set chose only horizontal blinds because the vertical ones would sway more on camera. Also, the team wanted an office look that was flatter and fit the documentary more, instead of getting the sort of cliched visuals. Saber Multiverse. If you look for them, you can see that Saber printers are in other NBC and Showtime shows, which kinda makes it seem like they're all in the same universe. Andy's fake parents. Different actors and names and different appearances have made fans think of a theory. Andy's wealth and embarrassment made him hire actors for a staged engagement photo op. Then his real family shows up at the garden party. Creed and the Loch Ness Monster. Creed's obsession with scuba diving and Scottish bounties is so weird that it feels like part of his past life leaking out. This only adds to the mystery of his past life. Michael was going to do blackface. The smudges on Michael's neck from Daryl's costume suggest that he started to put on makeup but then stopped. In this episode from 2010, Michael is still just one move away from disaster. His crossword joke suggests that he might have pretty niche tastes. The funny part is how open and unashamed he is about his personal pleasures at work. Radon poisoning. Toby's ignored warning about a gas with no smell became a theory for the increased silliness as the seasons went on. Hunter is Astrid's father. In Hunter's song, he said, "That one night you made me a man." Plus, Jan's secrecy and the overall timeline make Hunter a prime candidate. Plus, things are generally a little bit weird between Jan and Hunter, even with Michael there. Meredith is Pam. This is a what-if situation if Pam stayed with Roy. Meredith is raising a child alone, self-medicating, and I guess overall just checked out from life. Fans have said that Pam's bravery is what has kept her from that fate. Jim and Pam divorce. Writers thought about making a real split between Jim and Pam, either with him cheating with Kathy or just from him being in Philly. But Krasinski stayed adamant that this would really just throw off the show's whole dynamic.